This course is divided into 3 parts or 3 sections. So let's get started. First of all, let's see what is there for you in the first part of this course. So we will start with mobile device vulnerabilities that are categorized by OWASP organization. Then you will learn how difficult it is for enterprises to protect their infrastructure when their employees bring their own devices to work. We have also covered an introduction to mobile device management and mobile device security policies. In the next part, we will start with Android security structure and then we will explore what Android emulators are. And then we will learn about Android hacking tools and techniques. And in the last section of this course, we will start with iOS security, how to jailbreak iOS devices and how to disassemble iOS applications. That's it for this lecture. Hope to see you in the first section. This is the first lecture of part 1. I hope you all know about an organization called OWASP. If you are not familiar with this organization, I'll explain to you right now. So, the Open Web Application Security Project or OWASP is an online community that produces freely available articles, methodologies, documentation, tools and technologies in the field of web application security. OWASP is also registered as a non-profit organization in Belgium under the name of OWASP Europe VZW, and for more details visit their website www.owasp.org. Now OWASP passed an initiative called the OWASP Mobile Security Project, and it is a centralized resource aimed to give developers and security teams the resources actually need to build and maintain secure mobile applications. And of course, extends more than the mobile applications, but they actually are focusing in this specific initiative around mobile devices and mobile applications right now through the project. Their goal is actually to classify mobile security risk and provide developmental controls to be able to reduce the impact or the actual likelihood of exploitation of vulnerabilities in mobile devices. Now their primary focus is at the application layer. They also take into consideration the underlying mobile platform. So the actual hardware itself and also even the service provider risk whenever they are doing that threat modeling and building controls, right? Now they also cover not only the mobile applications deployed in the end user devices but also the broader server side infrastructure, and which is actually the mobile applications will communicate to. So in a lot of cases, actually these mobile applications are communicating to the cloud, right? So they also look at that communication from the mobile device and the cloud environment. They also cover best practices and vulnerabilities around the integration between the mobile application, the remote authentication servers and the actual cloud platform specific features. Okay. Now let's take a look at some of the top security vulnerabilities and threats that are assessed for mobile devices in their website. If you look at the OWASP Mobile Security Project website, you will find tons of resources related to mobile security. So the website includes the top 10 mobile risks and we will review those in a minute. So now it also includes mobile security checklist, a mobile security testing guide, a set of tools that they actually call M tools that allows you to test the security of mobile devices, a guidance for secure mobile device development and also the top 10 mobile controls, and a project that is dedicated to teach you how to perform threat models for mobile devices. Now if you click on the top 10 mobile risk, you will see that the current top 10 vulnerability or risk types for mobile devices are the following. And number 1 is improper platform usage. Then insecure data storage. Next is insecure communication. Then insecure authentication. Next is insufficient cryptography. And this is actually one of the challenges nowadays, because a lot of people should trying to create their own crypto implementation. Okay. So whenever you do that and you don't reuse some of the stronger out there like OpenSSL and some other ones that actually a lot more maintainers actually contribute to them, you will introduce security problems for sure, right? So the other ones, it's not only as far as the actual core crypto components but also the implementations of those, right? So especially whenever you actually do not have a sufficient cryptography best practices including to your device, right? Next is insecure authorization. Another one is client code quality, code tampering, reverse engineering, and extraneous functionality as well. Now this change from time to time, okay? So I definitely recommend for you to do two things. Keep these resources handy and also subscribe to their mailing list to get information about any new threats, and maybe you can even contribute to the project personally. And these guys actually not only provide a lot of resources for mobile device security, but a lot of resources and tools are also shared on their website. In this lecture, we will talk about BYOD. So what is BYOD? It stands for Bring Your Own Device. It is a trend that is quickly expanding in which companies allow their workers to bring their own personal devices to work and connect to the company's resources. That way, employees can work with their personal computer, can focus all the information in their personal phone, or have access to the corporate web from home. Now, BYOD is not just walking around the office with your personal devices, it has a lot more implications for the organization and working process. Before you sure the companies were better equipped than users. For example, normally people didn't have a personal computer at home, but they did in the company. And usually if you had a mobile device, it belonged to the company. However, advances in technology and consumerism have made it so that nowadays users have a more advanced technology than even what their company gives them. This has caused a huge growth in BYOD all around the globe and in big and small enterprises. The main pros of BYOD are the productivity and satisfaction in the workers increase. This is due to the fact that they use their own devices and applications and feel more comfortable. Also, they can work with more flexibility choosing when and where since the device is with them constantly. The company also saves a lot of money in technological resources. However, this all brings the main disadvantage of BYOD, which is security. The company's information is at risk. For example, if an employee loses his phone or a malware infects a device, this requires bigger maintenance and control from the IT department and a bigger cost of web data. To avoid this, it's important to have a mobile device management. These are programs that allow you to guarantee the security and installed remote applications, synchronize files, or track devices. They include many features that protect the privacy of the company. Therefore, BYOD is a great trend that is quickly becoming more and more popular. However, we must not forget to take the necessary security measures to use it. As you all know that the use of mobile devices has skyrocketed in the last few years and the trend is growing. According to IDC, the smartphone market is already larger than the PC market, which leads to mobile device management or MDM. So what is MDM? It's an ability to manage any device. So it can be a phone, it can be a tablet, or it can be even a laptop. Any mobile device from a central location, right? So example of that is Cisco Meraki and other companies that actually provides a central policy enforcement and management of these devices. And basically the goal is actually to protect those devices not only by providing patches but also by providing policies from your central location. Like in this case it is Meraki in the cloud, right? So from cloud you can manage devices within your organization, perhaps not installing the application and maybe that device camera enable, so you can actually specify the policies on how you want to manage those devices. Additionally, some of these devices are actually talk to other devices in the network like the ICE or Identity Service Engine to enforce further policies. Let's say you have an unmanaged tablet. Perhaps actually you don't want this tablet to accessing to a server in your organization. So there is policy that can be sent to a switch or firewall to actually block tablet from connecting to sensitive data or sensitive systems of your company and then allow tablet to actually connect to the internet. or vice versa. This tablet only connects to some resources and it would not connect to the internet, right? So possibilities are endless. You can modify policies to block some applications or allow some content to transfer to internet or to communicate any other devices within the organization. So that's one of the things that we are doing a pen testing. You actually have to keep in mind that some of these devices that you may actually be able to enumerate whenever you do reconnaissance on the network, or either you are scanning and that perhaps are actually vulnerable to something. They may actually be managed by an MDM. So try to actually find ways that you can bypass or even block the communication between the MDM and the mobile device, right? So of course, that's easier said than done. But there may be ways that you can analyze the communication of that device is actually allowed to do or not to do, right? So you can actually do this by actually monitoring the device activity, or perhaps you say, okay, this device perhaps is actually communicating that I am seeing these type of transactions to some API in the internet, and this MDM is actually allowing that to happen. So now you actually have a footprint, and if an attack surface that you can actually further explore. So for example, if that API perhaps is actually doing with crypto, you probably can take advantage of a vulnerability to hijack that transaction, for example, or an API abuse vulnerability that may actually be irrelevant in that case. But always keep in mind that a lot of organizations now are actually using MDM to actually manage those devices, monitor them and also patch them, right? So it's getting a little harder to actually do some of the bypasses nowadays, but definitely is possible. Now actually not only looked at the infrastructure here, but what the devices are actually communicating outside of the company as well. In this lecture, we will talk about Android security structure, and explaining Android security structure is a bit longer. So I have divided this lecture into 3 parts, and this is part 1. So let's start. Google actually inputs security features and work with developers and device implementers to keep the Android platform and the ecosystem in a safe environment. And again, it's not so much only about the actual Android platforms or your mobile device or your tablet or your refrigerator, whatever the case is actually running Android, but also as far as actually ecosystem, right? How you are connecting to the app stores, how you interact with APIs and so on. Now the beauty is that Android is designed to be open, and one of the challenges is that it has a little less controlled when compared to the other alternatives like Apple iOS. Now Google tries to maintain the Android platform to offer an application environment to help protect the confidentiality, integrity and availability of users and also of the data and the applications and the actual device itself. And of course the ecosystem as well. Now both Apple and Google have dedicated a lot of resources to make their mobile operating systems fairly secure. Some of the main challenges in security is whenever users root their device or jailbreaking the devices and leaving them open to either malware or compromised applications. Okay. Now the main Android platform building blocks are of course the device hardware, right? That runs on the terms of hardwares. So that includes your smartphone, your tablet, your smartwatches, cars, smart TVs, gaming systems, etc. A lot of things actually run Android nowadays. Now the other beauty is that Android is process or agnostic, right? But it does take advantage of some of the hardware specific security capabilities, especially in the ARM architecture. Okay? And there's actually a security capability called ARM execute never, right? There prevents a remote execution or arbitrary execution of any type of buffer overflows. Perhaps that actually can be exploited in the system. Okay. Now the Android operating system is the core operating system and it's actually built on top of the Linux kernel. So it's all based on Linux. All device resources like the camera, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, telephony functions, the network connectivity, etc. are accessed via the operating system itself. Okay. Now you also have the Android application runtime. Android applications are actually most often written in Java programming language, and they actually run in the Android runtime, right? And they refer this as the ART. However, many applications including the core Android services and other applications are actually native applications or include native libraries within the operating system itself. Now the Android applications extend the core Android operating system, and there are two primary sources for these applications. Okay. So the first is pre-installed applications that come with your device, and second is the user installed applications via the Google Play or any other stores that can be accessed mostly if you root the device. And that leads to the problem with security as I mentioned before. Welcome to part 2 of Android security structure. As you know, Google provides a set of cloud-based services that are available to different compatible Android devices. And these services are not part of the Android open source project itself, but they are included in too many different Android devices, right? So we have the primary service for installing applications from the actual store, which is Google Play. And you also have the services to actually push updates, which is called Android Updates. Android Updates is an update service that provides new features and security updates through either the web or through over the air. Okay. So now there's also the application services, and basically it's a framework that allows Android applications to use cloud capabilities like backing up your application data, backing up your settings, and also they have cloud to device messaging that is called C2DM. C2DM is used for pushing messaging to the cloud as well. Okay. They also have another service called Verify Apps, and it basically warn you or automatically block the installation of any type of a compromised applications or any harmful applications. And also it continuously scan applications on the device and warn you about them or removing those applications automatically. Another service is the safety net. Now some of you may be thinking that why I am explaining these terms to you. Well, because it helps you whenever you are doing pen testing. Okay. So now going back to the services, safety net is basically a privacy preserving. Well, some people call it intrusion detection system to assist Google tracking and mitigating known security threats, and also to identify other type of abnormal activity within the Android ecosystem. Okay. And now part of that is the safety net attestation service, and it basically allows third-party APIs to determine whether the device is CTS compatible and also can assist identify the Android app communicating with the app server, right? Now there's also the device manager. So the Android device manager is a web app and also an Android app that is actually used to locate lost or stolen devices, which is similar to what Apple has with Find My Device function. Now the Android security model is actually based on the concept of application sandboxes, okay? And each application runs its own sandbox. Now a long time ago, I mean several years ago, prior to Android version 4.3, these sandboxes were defined by the creation of a unique Linux UID. And the UID was actually for each application at the time of installation. Now from version 4.3, Android actually uses SE Linux, that is the security enhanced Linux, and it is actually used for defining the boundaries of the application sandbox in Android. Okay. Now as part of the Android security model, Android uses SE Linux to enforce MAC, that is mandatory access control over all processes, right? Even processes running with root or super privileges or super user privileges. And this actually helps protect the operating system. Also, SE Linux enhances Android by confining privilege processes and automating the security policy creation on that device. Now, Android also includes SE Linux in enforcing mode, and it is basically a corresponding security policy that works by default across those devices, right? So now in enforcing mode, whenever you do security research in Android platforms, the illegitimate actions are prevented by default and attempted violations are actually logged by the kernel to demessage and to lock cat. Okay. Android devices manufacturers should actually gather information about these errors so they can actually refine their software and their own SLNIX processes before enforcing them. However, unfortunately this doesn't happen all the time. Okay. That's one of the major differences between Apple iOS devices and Android. Although Google provides the operating system to Android, but it's up to the implementers to actually take care of these acute implementations, and maybe some implementations may be more secure than others. Now by default on Android, only the kernel and a small subset of the core applications run with their permissions, right? Now Android does not prevent a user or an application with root permissions from modifying the operating system. Okay. You can also modify the kernel or any of their application. So in general, root has full access to all applications and all application data. So whenever users change their permissions on an Android device to grant root access to applications, definitely it increases the security exposure to malicious applications and potential application flaws. And that's whenever you see a lot of impersonated applications and so on. So again, a lot of people that actually root their devices has to keep in mind that whenever you are doing security research on Android devices, in a lot of cases actually what people do is they start from just by rooting a device. Now the ability to modify an Android device that you own, it's important developers working with the Android platform, right? So on many Android devices, users actually have the capability or the ability to unlock the bootloader in order to allow the installation of some other alternate operating system. So some will call it custom ROMs, right? And these alternate operating systems may actually allow a user to gain root access for the purpose of debugging, and then system components to access the features that are not present to applications by the Android APIs by default. Okay. Welcome to the third part of Android security structure. In this lecture, we will talk about encryption, and it's specifically encryption at rest, right? Now Android version 5.0 and later, so for quite some time they actually supports full disk encryption. And then from Android 7.0 and later, it actually supports file-based encryption as well. And basically, file-based encryption allows different files to be encrypted with different keys that can be used to decrypt or decrypted or unlocked independently. Okay. Another thing that I want to cover here is the application signing. So application signing allows developers to identify the author of the application so that the user knows that the application is actually legitimate, and also to update their application without creating complicated interfaces or permissions, right? Now every application that is run on the Android platform by default must be signed by the developer. So if you root it and you go to some other stores, that's definitely a very different applications that actually attempt to install without being signed by default are rejected by either Google Play or the package installer on the Android device. Now on Google Play, developers know their application. It's actually provided by them or modified by them, and the developers actually can be held accountable for the behavior of the application. But of course, if it's modified, then all bets are off, right? Now on Android, application signing is the first step to placing an application in its application sandbox, okay? The sign application certificates define which user ID is actually associated with which applications, and then different applications run under different user IDs. Now application signing ensures that one application cannot access another application except through a well-defined IPC. Now when an application or APK files, basically applications are APK files. Whenever these are installed on an Android device, the package manager is the entity that actually verifies that the APK has been properly signed on with the certificate included in the APK. If the certificate, or more accurately the actual public key in a certificate, matches the key that is actually used to sign any other APK in a device, then new APK actually has the option to specify the manifest that it will actually share a user ID with other similarly signed APKs, right? Now applications can be signed by third party OEM or any other type of marketplaces. In a lot of cases, actually some enterprises may have their own app, so they have a different market, okay? It's not only because the device has been rooted and you want to get a free game from some other market, but in some cases actually there are some legitimate stores that are alternate markets that applications actually need to be signed, and those are actually signed with a third party or self-signed certificate. Now applications do not have to be signed by a central authority, and Android currently does not perform any certificate authority verification for application certificates. And that can be actually huge in the case of security, because it may actually lead to a security compromise if you don't verify the CA verification. Of course, it's a little bit different to scale whenever you provide the operating system and you have many different implementers in comparison to, let's say, Apple, that they actually control all the devices, and it's not like Apple iOS is running in other vendors' hardware. There are several Android emulators and IDE. Most popular among them is the Android Studio. The Android Studio is the official IDE for Android application development. Eclipse used to be the IDE for Android application development. Now a lot of people actually use the Android Studio. Now you can download this application from the link that I am showing on my screen. Once you download the Android Studio, then you run the installer. So you will be asked to either import the settings from a previous version of the Studio. In my case, I didn't have a previous version installed on my system. Click Next. Then you select the install type, and in my example, I have used the standard install. Once you verify the settings, the installer will download that latest SDK components and the emulator itself. Once it's finished, you will see the welcome screen, and then you actually start your new Android Studio project. So let's start. So you entered an application name and the company domain. You can also modify the project location. In my case, I am actually leaving it to the default parameters. Then you select the form factor that your app will actually run on. So in my case, I am selecting a phone and tablet. You can also specify the minimum SDK version, and in here I have selected Android 7.11. But you can select version 8 as well. It's completely up to you. Then the Android Studio will then install all the required components. Now you can add different components or activities to your application there. You can actually see the different internal and external libraries that are available for you to start building your application. I know that this is not an Android application development course, but getting familiarized with the Android Studio won't hurt you. And it is also important for you to actually see how applications are constructed under the hood, so you can understand the security or the lack of security of those applications or the actual components. Now this is really good not only for pen testing but also for security research. Now let's see how to create an emulator. Click the AVD manager icon at the top of the Android Studio interface and then click on create virtual device. Then you choose a device definition. You have many different options to emulate, from phones to TVs to wearable devices like smartwatches and so on. And then once you actually choose the device definition, then you accept the license in terms of all the components that will be installed. Now in this case, I selected the Pixel phone. And now I am renaming it to Shubham. And there you go. You have a fully functional phone, and now you can actually start playing around with this virtual phone just as if you will be playing with a real physical device. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Now let's discuss the tools and techniques used for hacking Android devices. So our first tool is the APK tool, and this tool can be used for application reverse engineering and for creating malware by infecting legitimate apps. Now you can download the latest version of the APK tool from this website. Now let's go ahead and launch the APK tool, and for this, type APK tool command and hit enter. Here you will see all the available options to be used. Okay, so you see things like forcing, delete, destination, directory, storing framework files into a specific directory, just showing the version, printing some advanced information about the tool, and many more. I am not teaching you all of these options, but let's see an example. So here I have a sample application or sample APK file that I called example APK, and let's disassemble it by using the APK tool command space D and then the name of the file. Here you can see the tool disassembly in the APK file and also decoding the Android manifest. So that's actually the XML file that has all the different information about the actual package itself. And you also see decoding all the different files within the application package as well. Now the tool created the directory called example, which is the same name of the APK file. Let's go into that directory, and then here you can actually see the different files that it actually disassembled as well as the Android manifest that I mentioned earlier. Now you can even see the user permissions of the application, and you can even add, delete or modify the permissions that the new impersonality application. I know it's a simple example, but it's up to you to be creative and change the application as you want. Now let's talk about the two other tools that are often used for reverse engineering. One is called Dex2Jar and the other one is called JDGUI, basically a graphical unit interface. Now let's see what it's actually Dex2Jar is. Basically it is a tool that converts the Dex files into jar files. And next is JDGUI, and it is actually a Java decompiler that can be compiled jar files to the original Java source. Okay, so you do this for reverse engineering and decompiling applications, right? And you can download both of the tools from the links that you are seeing on your screen. No installation is actually required for these tools because they are executables. And again, you can just download them, and in a suitable operating system, you can launch and use these applications. In this lecture, we will see one of the most important tools for any penetration testing engagement, not only for mobile device security, but for any web application assessment. And that is Burp Suite. Okay? And you can set up Burp Suite to actually view the HTTP traffic coming from an Android emulator, talking to potentially backend infrastructure. Okay. Now mobile applications of any kind such as banking, social networking or any application that actually contains a lot of functionality that requires internet communication, they basically have a typical client to server architectures. So in other words, they actually communicate potentially to the cloud to communicate to a backend. Okay. So whenever you want to understand the exact surface for these kind of apps, it is required to consider all the possibilities of the application, which includes the client application itself, the API that is actually using to connect to the backend, and the server related vulnerabilities and the database as well. That is why it's important that you actually have a good security open life cycle whenever you are creating your application infrastructure. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And you as a pen tester may take advantage of the different, and that not only the users are actually running on those applications, but the actual backend infrastructure, and that's where you can actually use things like Burp Suite to actually proxy out and evaluate and assess the victim security posture of that backend infrastructure. Okay, so looking for API abuse, looking for cross-site scripting, potentially in some backend servers or potentially SQL injection. So don't limit yourself just by looking at the app itself. If not the infrastructure, as a matter of fact, that's what you are gonna probably find most of the vulnerabilities. Okay. Now in the defensive side, this is why it's important to have a good threat modeling methodology. Okay. And this is actually done to identify the threats your application has by defining the assets, the value that actually provides, and the prospective threat actors who might actually be interested to attack those assets. And in this case, not only the app or the backend infrastructure as I mentioned before. Now threat modeling ideally needs to be done during the design phase of the application. However, you as a pen tester can also build your own threat modeling. This is actually often considered as the part of the reconnaissance phase in your pen test engagement. Okay. Now let's explore some common threats to mobile apps that have to be addressed during the design phase for the mobile applications, or that you can take advantage of during your pen testing. So the first one is the application data at rest. Often applications store data in the client side. Many mobile applications store sensitive data on the device without any encryption. This is one of the major problems of mobile applications. These data can be sensitive, confidential, and private. So data at rest on the device can definitely be exploited in many ways. Okay? So an attacker who actually got physical access to the device can gain access to this data with pretty much not doing anything. And potentially also a malicious application that it's actually compromised may gain access to this data if the device is actually rooted or jailbroken. And from a temp and testing perspective, this is a little tricky because you actually need physical access to the device or to create a malicious app and then trick the user to install it in his device, which in some cases may be out of the scope of your engagement. But if you are actually doing some type of a more in-depth security research or more in-depth assessment for your client, absolutely you can do this as long as it's the part of the scope. Now let's talk about application data in transit. Mobile applications that communicate with the backend are highly exposed to attacks that target the data in transit. So it is actually quite common to find end users basically joining a public available network. And you can combine some methodologies like fake access points or evil twins and then eavesdrops on the data using two tools like Burpsuit or man-in-the-middle proxy or SSL management or the Pineapple and many more ones. Now what happens if the application leaks data? Data leaks in the application is another issue in mobile applications. And in a mobile application security, it is possible that an app may unintentionally leak sensitive data to an attacker. This requires an extra attention from the developer and the code he uses for login during the development phase. It must be removed and he must make sure that no data is actually prone to leaks. So again, this includes sensitive data. It probably logs on sensitive that it goes beyond the sandbox in. So the main reason behind focusing on this is that applications unboxing not be applicable to some of the attacks in this class. If a user actually copies some sensitive data such as your security answer from an application or anything that will be placed on the device clipboard or in the other portions of memory which is definitely out of the application sandbox, and any other application sitting on the same device can read this data, copy it without the knowledge of the first application. Okay? Now another thing is the web services. And web services are almost similar to web applications. So it is possible that a web service can be affected with all the common vulnerabilities that a normal web application can actually have. For example, you can leverage many different types of vulnerabilities and threats like authentication, authorization, vulnerabilities. Session management in mobile platforms is typically done using an authentication token. Okay? So when the user logs in for the first time, he will be given an authentication token and this will be used for the rest of the session. If that token is not properly secured until it's destroyed or expired, it definitely may lead to an attack. Okay? Now killing the session at the client side but not at the server side is another common problem that is actually seen in mobile applications as well. So those are the type of things that you actually can manipulate and reuse tokens, and also input validation. Okay? So input validation is also known as data validation that we actually have seen in application for years, right? So it is possible to have a SQL injection or a cross-site scripting vulnerability if no input validation controls are actually implemented. Okay? So those are the things that you focus to evaluate that backend. Now errors that are attracted to attacker or some pen testers are another type of threat, and that is error handling. And if not properly done, then the API is actually throwing database or server error specific to the crafted request. It is actually possible for you to actually craft attacks using those errors, right? And let's see another thing, and that is weak cryptography. It's another area where developers commit mistakes during the development. I am making sure that they do not employ weak cryptographic protocols. Okay? Let's see few other tools and frameworks. So the first one is Drozr. And Drozr is a framework for Android security assessments that was developed by MWR Labs. Okay? and you can actually download it from this link that I am showing here. And unlike regular automated scanners, Browser is a little more interactive in nature. Now of course, you can use public exploits from websites such as Exploit Database, or you can use Metasploit. Okay, use MSF console command in Kali to start using Metasploit. And if you do a quick search in Metasploit for just the word Android, then you will see that it already has several exploits and other Android vulnerability enumeration features that you can actually use for performing Android assessments. So go ahead and use it, because some countries won't allow me to do all the practicals as they are very harmful for mobile devices and many consider them as illegal. I tried earlier performing practicals in my courses and got blocked on that website. So I'll not repeat the same mistake here, but I'll try my best to help you with this. Let's see another interesting tool, that is Quark. And Quark stands for Quick Android Review Kit. And this is actually a command line tool that performs static analysis of Android applications by actually decompiling the APK file using a lot of tools, and then analyzing the source code for specific patterns and specific vulnerabilities. And Quark was actually created by the security team on LinkedIn, and it can be actually downloaded from their GitHub repository, their apps that I am showing on screen. Okay, now let's launch Quark. Actually, I am sharing screenshots with you because Quark takes some waiting time to scan APK file and to decompile. Okay, don't worry, if you try this in your machine, you will see same steps to use it. You can launch it in interactive mode using the command that I am showing here. Then you will ask if you want to download the Android SDK, select yes for this example. And then the tool is downloading it and installing the SDK. Once it is done, it asks if you want to examine an APK file or a source file. And in this case, I selected an APK file and then provide the path to that file. And that's basically the same APK file that we use in the earlier example. There you see that it actually starts on back in the file, and it asks you if you want to inspect the manifest, select yes. And here you can see the actual Android manifest. Now Quark them. It's to further the compiled APK file and ask you if you want to begin to perform static code analysis. So let's actually do that. Then you will see that Quark performs a series of code analysis checks, like looking for insecure functions, access control checks, hard-coded API keys, crypto issues, and many more. So once it's done, it actually exports the findings to a report and even asks you if you want to build an exploit APK file with any potential vulnerabilities that actually may found. So let's actually do that. And once it's done with all this process, it also completes the report and tells you where stores that report. So let's open that report in a web browser, and it looks the same as here in our screenshot. And there you can see that actually you found two potential vulnerabilities in the APK file that I inspected. And it also provided some warnings. Some of them are information alert, and you also see debug messages that can potentially help you troubleshoot or further examine other errors in the application. Okay? So now you will also see the manifest. Let's look at the pending insights section. There you can see that actually found two potential vulnerabilities in two Java files. In this case, we found two potential vulnerabilities in those files. And you can see this is actually a pretty powerful tool to perform in-depth Android application analysis. Now let's go over another useful resource that was actually created by the HoneyNet project. And basically they created a pretty handy virtual machine for reverse engineering called ARE, or you can call it ARE, okay? And it comes with many tools that includes AndroGuard, Android SDK, the APK inspector, the APK tool that we actually mentioned before, then Dex2Jar that we mentioned before, next is Droidbox, and many more. How to hack an Android phone in 30 seconds. Now if you ask me whether is it possible to hack an Android phone in 30 seconds, Then my answer would be yes, it is. Now let me show you the complete process behind this. So for this, the very first step is either we can develop our own application or we can use the applications which are already on the internet. Okay, so the one application which I personally trust is Spy Setup. Okay, so let's open your browser and visit spysetup.com. Right now, here you can see that website itself says open this website from the phone or tablet you want to monitor, right? And then download and install the application. Okay, so there are many different ways that you can use this application on your target smartphone. The first is click here on download free Android Spy now button. Okay, once you got your APK file, then it's up to you how you deliver that file to your target smartphone. Okay, you can use a pen drive or you can use your own mobile phone and send it via, let's say, WhatsApp or by email, etc. It's up to you. Okay, now the other way is you can take access to your target smartphone just for 30 seconds only, right? So once you got the access to your target smartphone, open this website, okay, and download the APK file, right? Or you can visit Google Play Store and you can turn off the security feature. Okay, so you have to turn off the Play Protect feature. Only then you will able to use this app. Okay, but if you visit it from directly from the website, which is spysetup.com, there is no need to turn off the Play Protect security feature. Okay, and once you install the application in your target smartphone, open it for the very first time and it will ask you only one thing, which is your email ID. Okay, so enter the email ID where you want to receive the complete information about your target smartphone. Okay, the complete data. So enter your email ID and click on submit, and that's all. Once you click on submit, this application will automatically disappears and the actual owner of the smartphone will unable to know about this application. Okay, so now let's calculate the time. Okay, the 30-second time. So I assume that you need 5 seconds just to open a browser and type spysetup.com. Then you need another 5 seconds to download this application. Okay, because this application will have a length of around 4 KB or 5 KB. Okay, and not more than that. Again, I will consider another 5 to 10 seconds just to open this website for the very first time, and I will consider another 10 seconds to enter your email ID, right? So if you calculate the total amount, so it would be 5 plus 5 plus 10 plus 10. Okay, so that would be around 30 seconds, right? So this is the easiest way of getting all of the information about your target smartphone. Okay, so this way you can hack a smartphone in less than 30 seconds. Okay, let me add one more important thing here. Once you enter your email address, then under 5 or 10 minutes you will receive an email from this website, and that contain username and password and a special link. So using that special link, you will able to access the complete data of your target smartphone. Okay, but the total process will take around 30 to 60 minutes to make you view the complete data, like messages or calls your target person has received on your target smartphone, and also the images and other information, right? So you will able to view the complete data of your target smartphone 30 or 60 minutes. And you can also use this application on your own smartphone as well. Okay, just for the monitoring purpose, right? So for example, someone asked you for your smartphone for whatever reason, okay, and you allowed them. So how you know that what the other person is doing with your smartphone? So you can also use this application to monitor activities of your smartphone as well. Actually, this application mainly developed for the monitoring purpose only, but you can also spy on your target smartphone using the same application, right? Apple iOS has attracted a lot of interest from pen testers and security researchers, and also from threat actors. Now, iOS had an interesting evolution, and this is because initially it was fairly in an insecure platform. But now it's one of the most secure consumer grade operating systems in the market. Now, if you look at the overall operating system security, it is actually somewhat similar to Android. Okay? And this is because it actually supports runtime defenses like ASLR or address space layout randomization and things like code signing, sandboxing, and many other security features that we also talked about whenever we were talking about Android. Okay? Now also the same threats will apply here, not only in the mobile platform but also in the app backend infrastructure. Okay, so things like the authentication and authorization vulnerabilities that we talked about before, also session management, input validation, error handling, and weak crypto. All those actually apply here as well. Okay. Now when we talked about Android, we introduced the concept of rooting a device. For iOS, the term that is actually often used is called jailbreaking or jailbreaking the phone or the mobile device. Jailbreaking can be described as a process of taking full control of an iOS based device by performing privilege escalation so that you can install anything in your phone. Well, if you do that, then you also open your phone for potential malicious applications to be installed. So in some cases can be considered as a double-edged sword. Okay? Now from a pen testing perspective or a security research perspective, that is actually one of the first things that researchers actually try to do from the beginning by jailbreak their mobile device. Okay? And this generally can be done by using one of the several tools that are available for free online. And in some cases by simply visiting a particular website. We will examine on how this is done in the next lecture. By the time you know that you can jailbreak iOS device by using tools or by simply visiting some websites. Basically the goal is to perform privilege escalation attack, to install custom themes, install applications or extensions to applications. You can also configure the device to allow remote access either via SSH or via VNC. You can also install other arbitrary softwares or even compile the software directly on the device. In some cases, threat actors also uses some pirate applications like games and play them for free in their mobile devices, and that's how most of the iOS device gets affected. They go into stores in place of Apple Store in order to download pirated applications. Although jailbreaking iOS devices is getting harder by the time and even more harder after Apple introduced iOS version 11. On the other hand, folks are there who have created tools like LibreOS that allows you to jailbreak iPhone X and later models. Also things like iPad and different gadgets using iOS 11 or later. Now jailbreaking the iOS device is a lot easier, but before I show you these tools, I want to give you the disclaimer that these procedures may be illegal depending on your country. Please remember that I am teaching these tools and techniques only for the purpose of education and I am not encouraging any illegal activities. Now let me show you the tools that people using to jailbreak their devices. This is the LibreOS tool that can be used to jailbreak the devices running on iOS 11 or later versions. And also you have Cydia Impactor, which is another tool created by a security researcher. Sorry. and actually he has done a ton of researches on iOS security and created different tools that are used by many security researchers and in some cases by pen testers out there. There are a few different tools that can be used for reverse engineering. Now these tools are not only for iOS and disassemble iOS applications. Most of them actually can be used for reverse engineering other applications, operating systems, and even used by security researchers to reverse engineer malware. By far, one of the most popular disassembler out there is IDA Pro. It is used by many security researchers, many security professionals, but the problem is actually it's not free and it's actually quite expensive. Now another tool is Hopper. It is not free and it allows you to disassemble and perform static analysis of executable files and applications. Now another simple yet useful tool is actually the Object File Display Tool or O tool that actually comes with the Mac OS X by default, and you can actually port it over to a few Linux distributions. Okay. Now one last tool that I want to share with you is a tool called Flex, which is a set of application or debugging tools or functionality for an iOS development. You can actually download it from the GitHub repository that I am showing on the screen. Did you know that Google records all of your activities, especially the activities which you do in your smartphone? The answer is yes. Now, did you know that you can control all those activities? You can stop Google from recording your activities. Also, you can delete the activities which are already recorded by Google. Some of you may say yes and some of you may say no. Now, I hope you all know that when you boot your smartphone for the first time, it will ask you to enter your username and password of Google account. From that point, Google starts recording all of your activities. Now, I assume that all of you may be using YouTube mobile application, right? And if you go to the settings of YouTube mobile application, you will find two different options, which is pause search history and pause watch history. Okay, so you turn on this option and you think that it will stop Google from recording your activities, but that's not the truth. Okay, still Google records all of the contents you watch on YouTube. Okay, so how you can manage your activities recorded by Google? So in this lesson I will teach you how you can manage all of your activities, how you can stop Google from recording your data, how you can delete already recorded data from Google. So for this, just open your browser and type google.com/history and hit enter. Okay, so it will take you to myactivity.google.com/myactivity, right? Now, in the previous video, I told you how you can use a simple application in order to hack a smartphone. But what if your target already knows about you, that you know the cybersecurity, okay, and he or she doesn't trust you, okay, or don't provide you the access to their smartphone, or you don't have physical access to your target smartphone? Well, in that case, you can still able to view all of the activities, all of the data of your target smartphone if you have Google account username and password of that person. Okay, so visit this URL and here you will able to see my Google activity, right? Okay, so these are the apps which I am using on my smartphone, and you can see I have searched for spysetup.com using Google Play Store, right? Okay, and I am using Paytm and this Wink Music app. Okay, now if you want some more details, you may go to item view. Okay, and in item view you have a detailed list of what I have done. Okay, so I have viewed image from Livewire. Okay, and I have searched for YouTube mobile app settings to pause search history images. Okay, now here you can delete your activities. Okay, so you want to delete your activity from last hour or last day or all time, or you have also an option of custom range. Okay, so let's say I want to delete the history of last hour, so click on delete. Okay, now click on other Google activity. Here it will divide all of your activities in different categories. For example, for web and app activity, click here. For device information, click here. For voice and audio activity, click here. Right? For YouTube watch history, click here. Okay, so you can manage all of your activities from here as well. Now if I click on manage activity, it will open a new page. Okay, so I am able to delete all of my recorded web and application activity from Google. Okay, if you want to delete all of your activities of YouTube, so click here on YouTube. Okay, if you want to delete your location history, then click here and you can manage your all of your location activities from this option. Okay, so if I click here, it will open a new page. Okay, but remember, it is specially for location only. Okay, so it is limited to location only, right? Now let me tell you one more important thing. Okay, and let's say device and manager. Okay, so let's open this link. So if you go to Google and search for device manager, it will tell you the complete information of your smartphone that you are using right now. Okay, so I am using two different smartphones. Okay, so this one is online and location is turned off. Now suppose you lost your phone in your home or in your nearby places, and now you are not able to find your phone. Okay, so you can play sound continuously for 5 minutes. Okay, even if it is set to silent. Okay, your phone still rings even you have set your smartphone to silent. Okay, now the other option is to secure your device, which is you can lock your device and sign out from all of your Google accounts, right? Suppose you lost your phone, okay, or your phone has been stolen. In that case, you can also erase your all of your device data, okay, all of your content from your smartphone. Okay, but once you erase all of your data, then you will not able to locate your smartphone. Okay, so I hope now you know about your smartphone, how you can control all of the activities recorded by Google and some other things. Suppose you are working for a company and your company found that one of its employee is leaking the confidential information using his Android mobile device. Okay, so they have filed complaint with you, and now you are the security professional or a forensic investigator, right? So being an forensic investigator, it is your duty to handle this case. So the first step you do is to find out whether the Android device is rooted or not. Okay, and if you found not, then you have to root it, right? So the process is called rooting an Android device. Routing is very important because it provides you the access beyond authorized limits, right? So it is very important. So the first step is to rooting the Android device. Okay, so we will going to use an application called Kingo Root. Okay, so type download Kingo Root, okay, for PC. Okay, now open the link. Okay, you can open this link or you can directly go to this website, which is kingoapp.com, right? Okay, so let it open. Okay, so you can download the latest version, which says it is around 18 MB in total. Okay, so let's switch to the website, and here you can download it for Android, or you can also scroll down and you will find that it is also available for the PC, right? So you can directly go for kingoapp.com and then you can download it as per your needs, right? Now once you download it, so let me switch to my physical machine because I have already downloaded that software on my machine. So here it is. Okay, so let's open the software. Okay, now it says please connect your device via USB cable. Okay, so let me connect my device. See, I am not performing this practical in virtual machine. I am using my Android mobile device. Okay, now it asks you to allow USB debugging. Okay, so you have to click on OK in your smartphone, right? So close all of these boxes. Okay, it says connecting. Okay, and this is the pop-up which you will see on your mobile screen, so you have to click on OK, right? Now if you don't know how to enable USB debugging, then let me tell you, you have to go to the settings. Okay, then go to about phone, then go to build number, and you have to tap 7 times on your build number, right, which enables the option of developer, right? So then again go to phone settings and you will find developer options, and in that options you will find USB debugging. So you have to turn on this option while connecting to your system, right? Now to start routing, I have to click on this button which says root, right? Now I will try to take a picture of my real device and will add in this video. Okay, so for now let's click on root. Okay, now it says routing around 3% in my mobile screen as well. So let me pause this video and I will resume once it reaches to 100%. So the routing process has now completed, and now you will able to see some of the pictures of my smartphone on your screen. Okay, now just for your information, my Android mobile device is running on Android Lollipop. Okay, in this lesson I will share some of the important mobile security guidelines with you, and the guidelines are same for both Android and iOS devices. So let's start with our first mobile security guideline, which is use a passcode for mobile device security. Okay, so setting a passcode for your mobile device or for any of your device is very important. Okay, so configure a strong password with maximum length. Suppose your mobile device allow you to set a password with minimum length of 6 characters and the maximum length with 14 characters. So always go with the maximum length. Okay, and always create a complex password. Now what is a complex password? A complex password is a combination of a capital letter and a small letter and numbers and special characters. Okay, because it is very easy for an attacker to crack a password with 6 characters. Okay, but it is very hard and a time consuming process if an attacker try to break a password with 14 characters. Okay, so to increase security, always use a complex password and always go with the maximum length. Now always set ideal timeout for automatic locking of the phone. Okay, so suppose you are not using your phone, then you must enable a timer. Let's say 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So after 15 seconds your phone will automatically lockout. Okay. Now, lockout feature must be enabled after certain number of failed attempts. Okay. So always enable this option. Okay. Let's say you have set this option to 3. So after 3 failed attempts, your phone will automatically gets locked. Okay. Now, the next important mobile security guideline is always update the operating system and apps regularly. Okay, because your operating system and the apps which you are using will definitely release updates from time to time. Okay, so always remember to update your OS and apps regularly. Also, turn on the Play Protect feature in your Google Play Store. Okay, that would help you in scanning for the security of apps. Okay, and will help you to detect which app is genuine and which is not. Right. Now, always enable the remote management. Use mobile device management software for supporting, managing, monitoring, and securing the mobile devices deployed in the organization. Fourth, do not allow rooting or jailbreaking. Okay, because rooting will grant access beyond authorized limits, right? And jailbreaking is the same as rooting a phone. Okay, but rooting an iPhone is called jailbreaking, right? Now the fifth is use remote wipe services. For example, the remote wipe or find my iPhone or find my phone for locating the device when it is stolen or lost. Always configure the mobile device for encryption storage with a hardware encryption if possible. Next, periodic backup and synchronization should be done. Okay, so use the secure over the air backup and restore tool, because this tool will help you to synchronize apps in the background. Again, never download any file from unknown emails, okay, or from any unknown websites or from any unknown sources, right? And always use premium version of antivirus, okay, because in the free version or in the trial version you are not able to completely use all of the security features of an antivirus program. Always use updated browser. Again, use mobile anti-spyware. Okay, anti-spyware would help you to detect spyware in your mobile phone and would remove it, right? Now you may use BullGuard. Now what is BullGuard? Okay, now what is BullGuard? It's a mobile phone antivirus which can track a lost or stolen phone using inbuilt GPS, right? And it will lock the stolen phone and wipe the data in order to protect your financial and personal information, right? So these are some of the very common but most important mobile security guidelines. In this lesson, I will teach you how to recover your deleted or formatted data. Many a time it happens that we delete the important data by mistake, or we format the complete hard disk, and then after some days we remember that we have not taken the backup of our important files, right? So data recovery softwares will definitely help us in that case. Okay, or suppose one of your company employee is leaking some confidential information, and then the person deletes or format the storage, right, and thinks that now he is safe. Now as a security expert, it's your job to recover the data and collect the evidence, right? Although there are so many softwares available for free and paid which help you to recover data, but the one which I personally use is EaseUS data recovery visa software. Okay, so now it's version 12.9.1. You can download the free version or go for the paid one. Okay, but if you are using this software for the first time, I suggest you to go for the free download, because the free version itself allows you to recover data up to 2 GB for free. which is a good thing, right? But I personally using the paid one. Okay, I have the license key of this software. So now remember one thing, if you want to recover data from your computer system or from your mobile device or from your memory card, the process is same. Okay, so let me show you how. So let me open is US data recovery software. Okay, so remember the free version will allow you to recover 2 GB of data only, and the paid version will allow you to recover any amount of data. Okay, so now it says select a location, okay, from where you want to search for the deleted files or you want to recover your data. Okay, so for example, let's say for now I will go with this one. Okay, E drive. So let me open this, and once I open, it will automatically start scanning for deleted files. Okay, as you can see here, it says 26 deleted files. Okay, now if you remember from my previous videos, then you will know that I have installed server 2012 in my virtual box. Okay, and I am also using Metasploitable there as well. So let me open my virtual box and you will see that I have deleted these files and are no longer exist on my Oracle virtual box, right? See, there is no Metasploitable and not a server 2012. Okay, so now if I want to recover any of these, I have to just select the file which I want to recover. Okay, I have to simply select a file, right? So select the file. Okay, let's say I selected these 3 files, right? And now it says the number of selected files is 48. Okay, it has included all of the files because I have ticked here. Okay, now it says total of 10.38 GB. Okay, so if I click on recover button, it will going to recover around 10.5 GB of data. Of course, it will take a lot of time, but it does our work, its work very well. Okay, and I trust this software, right? Okay, now if you want to recover data from your memory card, simply attach your memory card with your computer system and browse the location. Okay, that's all you have to do in order to recover the data, right? But the software you are watching in this video is a trial version. Okay, you can see here. So I am not able to recover the data using this trial version, right? And remember one thing, if you format your hard drive many times and you want to recover the very old data, then there are chances that the software will unable to do that. Okay, so software will show you an error that the file is corrupted, okay, and will not be fully recoverable, right? So remember this thing, always take a backup before deleting any of the important data, right? So in this way you can easily recover any data you want.